Okay, we've got the stream up and running. Now we'll be doing these scheduled streams once a week, and then we'll be having just various contributors coming in and doing the streams in here as they're available. We'll be doing some educational content through the streams as well. It'll be easy to archive it this way and then upload it, so there's not as much of a delay getting some of the educational material out. Alright, so you can see I've got Bitcoin pulled up right now, and I've just got actually got some lines that I already had drawn here. I've got the volume below, the CMF, which is the money flow. And if you were following some of the TA yesterday, I said when we were down here and we were falling towards this support, that's when I posted about this is the time to kind of buy the dip, because if you see here what was happening on the CMF, we had this sharp spike, and it was all the way up here actually when I was talking about that. So it was pretty obvious to me that we were about to see this nice strong bounce, and now you can see we've gotten a little weak bullish TK cross on the Ichi there. Its price action is still under the cloud, as is the cross, so I really want to see the price action enter that cloud. That would be a stronger sign to me. If it bounces down off that cloud, then this TK could very well invalidate. So that's kind of something that I'm looking at here. Now, let's see, what have we got? Some of these lines, as you can see, the price action, this line is through it, and that's because that line was already drawn previously. It was based on, move to the 4 hour. Whoa, a lot going on there. This is from the previous lesson. So you can see kind of why that line is there. It's from this peak to this peak. And so then the magnet tool, if you're over here, I guess you can't see my mouse, can you? But this magnet tool and this ray tool here is what I'm using to draw that. The line is the default, but the ray is the one that I really like. You could also use extended or parallel channels, things like that. Oop, now I've got one. Delete that. So that's what that is, and that's where that line comes from. So you can use those rays because then it draws it out like that, and you can see how the price action hit this same area. And it's not exact, so you got to be kind of careful. But it was a good area, obviously, because that's where we bounced down from. So if you look on the 4 hour here, we've got the Kijun line right above, and the price came up and bounced off that. And this, let's see, we've got some lower highs here, but this is following that action. The price is coming down. The one thing that's not great is that this peak is higher than this peak on the CMF. So that's a little bit of a divergence there. Well, no, it's not. What am I talking about here? Not divergence, that's the wrong word, but it is showing that the price action and the CMF agree kind of in that trend. So I really want to see this price action get above this Kijun and see that Tenkan start to curve back up. Because if we could do that, if we could get that signal, the Tenkan, to come up and cross back above the Kijun up here, that would be fantastic. But just based on this, I kind of feel like we'll come up, maybe test a little bit more, come back down towards this support. I don't really see us breaking this support yet, if at all, honestly. Let's see, let's look at the daily here, what do we got going on? So we can see the Kijun is flattened out, and we came down below the Tenkan. So that Tenkan is basically in the same place on the daily as the The Kijun is on the 4-hour, so that's a pretty strong area of resistance that we need to push through. Oh yeah, let's see. Might be a little bit quiet here. I can also just talk louder. That helps. So, and we're going to have this set up so that there's multiple people on the streams as well, so we'll be having chats on here, things like that. This is just the first one. We're playing with it, kind of ironing out some of this stuff. And you guys can post in the suggestion area things that you want to see on the actual stream. And at some point, we're probably going to have some of the members involved as well. You can get on and we'll do kind of group streams for live day trading and things like this. So let's see. Now we're back down to the hour, and I like what's going on here. This looks good to me. Everything else is fine here. Volume is decreasing on this bounce, which is not great. We don't really want to see that. You want to see the volume kind of following the price action, so we'd really rather see some increased volume on that. But if you look at it, when we had the selling, this was decreasing selling volume, and then we had some increasing buying volume along with that price action, so that's good. This higher point, though, had lower volume, and that's kind of a, not an absolute, but it's definitely kind of a yellow flag, just something to pay attention to. So let's look at the VPVR, what we got going on here. And this is a very small range that I'm looking at. This is an hourly chart, so it is a limited data set that I'm using. I can zoom out, and then the VPVR will automatically adjust to the larger area. But I just kind of want to see what's going on a smaller time frame here. So, okay, so we're back at this level. This area right here, as you can see, kind of right where we are and right above us, is at the moment an area of resistance for us, because there's just some increased interest buying and selling in that area. And then we've got a gap right there. But we have some decent volume down around the support of the Kijun line there on the hourly. So if you're looking for some entries on a shorter time frame, you definitely want to look at some of this more recent action. And you'll see people using lower time frames as well for entry and exit points on day trading. I tend to look at the hourly as one of my smallest time frames because I tend to just take a little bit longer time frame positions overall. But when I'm day trading, I'll look at the hourly and then the 30 and the 15 minute mostly. Anything lower than that is just kind of noise, and can be useful for entries, of course, but there's just a lot of noise. So if you're new to trading, I tend to recommend just kind of avoiding the lower time frames in general. 15-minute and 30-minute for entries, and an hour for trying to day trade if it's something you're learning. And honestly, if you're new to trading and you're trying to day trade, just from a risk management standpoint, don't. It's not the easiest form of trading by any means. Like swing trading, you will find yourself far more successful with it first. But day trading is something you can learn, obviously. So you see how we're getting some price action kind of pushing us down a little bit right there. This is the area on the 4-hour right here where we have the Kijun and price action bounce down. So, but this is entirely possible that we'll see this kind of bounce down to this area and then try to enter the cloud. So that's kind of what I'm watching for, and that's what I see going on here. A little bit more money flowing out, so we should see that price action come back down a little bit. So anyway, just, risk management standpoint, day trading you're going to find difficult, especially if you don't have a lot of practice with the emotions of trading itself. Because you're going to see, price spikes like this, and that's going to encourage you to sell. You're going to see, big green candles if you're not in a position, and you're going to want to buy. And, that's just standard FOMO. It's when you first start trading, you want to buy into, it seems like, oh, okay, it's going up. I'm going to miss out, so I better buy. But of course, ideally, you want to buy into strength as it crosses resistance or retests what was resistance and then strength, or you want to buy on support, and that's, if you're looking at the TA that I posted last night, or early this morning for some people in the United States, it was price action was right around here when I posted that, and so I was expecting this kind of a bounce here, so that would have been a great place to take a little day trade. And that was pretty much, as I was saying earlier, entirely based on this CMF right here, that sharp spike on the hourly, because this spiked up before the price did, and you can see that on the chart right there. And this is where I was looking at it when the CMF was here and here. So between these 2 points, that spike, it was very obvious to me that we were going to see some price action because of that spike in money flow. So that's one of the great things about using the CMF actually for entries and day trading is, while a lot of indicators are lagging indicators, the CMF, especially on, like, I have the CMF set to 7 right now, so it's taking a tighter data set, so I'm getting more signals, of course, also potentially more false signals, but when I get these spikes in my in just money flow and buying, basically, that's a great early indicator to me that this is going to be a good place to potentially take a trade. And if it's happening right against support, that's an obvious low risk trade for me. From a risk management standpoint, if you have this, and I'll show you why that line is there. I have this trend. I didn't draw that trend yesterday. That trend was already there. I actually drew that trend days ago. If you look at some of my previous charts, it was drawn on a 4-hour. So these are the 2 points that I used to draw that. And that's that magnet mode with the ray again. So that's the one I'm using, ray and magnet mode, just like that. So I start here, and you can see the crosshairs, how they're bouncing around as I move the mouse. That's because they're magnetizing to the price action. So I started down here, and then I drew it up there. Let me switch so you can see here. So I used those 2 points for that trend after that bounce. And so it just draws that out, and the price action came down, bounced right off that same area and off of this bullish order block. And you can see we've actually had, higher lows on all of these, little bounce down. So that's a good sign. And we had higher high as well. So that shows me that we're still in a bullish trend. We had this, short-term bear trend right there, and I drew that out based on this point and this point, and we popped up and broke through it, and that's a great sign. Price action, like I said, is probably going to come back and retest a little bit here, but that's something that you want to see. So getting back to why I showed you that, this line was already there, so that's a previous trend support that I have identified. Now if we look on the VPVR, this area, not a lot of support right there, but right below it, we've got plenty of interest, plenty of buying interest. Okay. Let's see here. So anyway, with the risk reward, it came down and bounced here, and I see this money flow. So I think, all right, this is a great place for me to take a position, and then if we fall down below, if we close a candle below this support, well, then I stop loss out, very small loss, and I can look for a new entry, because it's entirely possible that it can bounce down into here and then bounce back up. And then I just stop loss out, and that's an entry I didn't get, or maybe I try and get a lower entry down here, something like that. But that area right there is just, from a risk management standpoint, it was a great place to try and take a position. And that's why I posted that last night. So that's what I'm seeing here with Bitcoin, is that we are still in this bullish trend, because we've got higher high right there, and we've got higher lows along here. That doesn't mean that it can't reverse, of course. You will see, let's see if I zoom out a little bit here, 4 hour, let's get rid of some of this noise so we can see better. Oops, that's not what I want. All right, let's make this cleaner so we can really see it. So let's look at some of these. We've got this point, and then a slightly lower. So, we do have some lower highs on the indicator with higher highs on the price action. So that can be a bearish divergence. It's something to watch for. The RSI kind of shows the same thing. So that's definitely a little bit of a yellow flag, something to pay attention to. But that's not something I would worry too much about, since we just had this, so that very likely could be that divergence playing out. If we broke down through this trend, that would be a bigger worry to me. All right, and I'm not watching the chat at all, so I should probably look at that. I was just told to pay attention to the chat, so I better do that. Sorry guys, I was not paying any attention to the chat. Oh, now you see that. What about ICX? Oh yeah, let's take a look. Okay, let's see here. Had a request for ICX. Well, you can see I have some previous lines drawn on this one. This is one I've been watching too for a while. So let's take a big view first, just so we can kind of see what's going on here. That looks super healthy overall. That's a very obvious uptrend that we see, and it's not crazy far away from it, like up here. So it's kind of looking like we're near support, not bad entries. If you look at the VPVR, obviously there's lots of action here. This is not a very old coin. So this looks good. A lot of buying there. That looks like kind of a pre-pump accumulation. Somebody buying a large amount all at once. You had this kind of rounding bottom right there. Now you're going to see people call this a cup and handle. It's not really. It's not everything has to be a cup and handle or a Head and Shoulders or whatever else. Like if you look at the top, this is not a Head and Shoulders. It's still price came down, and that's fine. Somebody might argue that like there's a shoulder here and a head here and a little shoulder there, but you're kind of stretching. So, those you don't have to find patterns like that all the time. It's more important to be more discriminating with those kinds of patterns, and when you find them, really trade that pattern. But be discriminating. Don't find them everywhere. Learn the rules for those and follow the rules, because if you're just trading it because it kind of looks like it or somebody on Twitter said it is, that's not a good plan. You don't know, like, where is your exit plan, what is your strategy, what time frame is it on, because a Head and Shoulders on a 15-minute time frame has a very different target price than the Head and Shoulders on a 4-hour time frame. So these are just some simple things to be aware of. So on the daily with ICX, when we're zooming in here, obviously this looks like a bearish engulfing kind of thing. However, it doesn't fully meet the rules for bearish engulfing. This is another thing that I see people posting about. They use some of the candle patterns, but they maybe haven't spent the time to really learn the rules for some of those patterns. Now, this isn't to say that the price can't continue to come down. I'm just saying that it's not necessarily because it's a real bearish engulfing pattern. The bearish engulfing, the second candle, is really supposed to be higher. The wick, or the body, is supposed to be higher than the previous candle top there. So if this red candle started up here, where I have my crosshairs, that would be a pretty obvious bearish engulfing if it closed at this level. But right now, it seems likely that we could just come back down and test this, and we might bounce off it, or we might continue to kind of dribble down here. The best possible entry would be along here. As you can see, we've tested that line twice recently. So that's a pretty strong bullish trend line now, and that's from the very beginning of that coin. I'm just kind of using the bottom of that candle. And as you can see, price wicked down below it. So with newer projects like this, it is harder to chart, especially on a longer time frame. I kind of think that the Ichimoku shows us nothing on this, on my settings for it, just because there's not enough data yet on this time frame. So let's see. I'm just kind of curious. It's not the right settings for that though either. Oh, that's interesting. All right, we'll come back and look at that again. Those are not the right settings though, so don't worry too much about that. Let me just actually use the defaults for that. So this is something that I've talked about a few times, the MACD strategy. This is just a mechanical system. Don't trade off of it alone, because as you can see, like, this was a short call here, and that was a long call. So like the long call was great, and it just closed that. So you could close and open a short. So it's a decent signal thing, but these are just default settings, and they're not very accurate in my opinion. And just because of the way the script works, the strategy there is it's not giving you any real information, as you can see. So okay, close that. Let's see, what's the chat going on? Be sure to throw us a follow to get notified when we're, oh, that's us. What about Storm? What indicator is that on the right? That's the VPVR on the right there. Hey, which portfolio size you got? I'm poor. All right, so let's see. We've got this big red candle. That's great, actually. I think probably either one of my buy orders probably filled or is about to fill. So the one thing that's not great is that price is below this previous high. And really in a continuation trend, you want to see, let's see here. In a continuation trend, you want to see the price, the lows in price, higher than the previous high. So we're not getting that right now, and we didn't get that right there either. So that could be kind of a sign that this is still going to come down a little bit more. ICX is not one that I'm really worried about personally, because that's a longer term play for me. So like if we got back down here, I would buy more at this level. You know, I think I originally bought some right here around 4, and then I bought more down here at like 2.7 area. Did I buy it? Yeah, I bought it here. I bought a little bit more here, and I bought a little bit more at like 4.7, and then some more on this dip at about 4.3, 4.4. So this is one that I'm just kind of personally accumulating longer term. Let's see on a shorter time frame though. Let's take a look at what's going on with this. All right. Okay, so yeah, that looks like. Let's zoom in on this and see. Yeah, see, like that kind of looks like a head and shoulders on a smaller time frame. So the rule, let's just play with this actually. Let's see what we can find out. And I'm not saying this is, because it looks to me like it has not technically broken the neckline, though we're right on that neckline. So this is a great kind of live action. See what's going on here. So let's build this. Yeah, I mean, that would be pretty accurate if that played out, come back down, retest this bottom on what was some bearish resistance and potentially now some support for us. Because we've got this gap. Oh yeah, see there? The price just broke down below. And so you've got some increasing, probably sell volume there. And if it's you guys doing this, well, good job. So we've got this gap right here in volume. So there hasn't been a lot of buying or selling here, so you're going to see more potentially buying and selling a little bit lower. Now, let's see, what is this? This candle just started, though, so this could just wick down here and then go right back up. So be careful of those kinds of things, because the head and shoulders pattern is one that a lot of people look for, and so a lot of people counter trade it. There was a big one last year on Bitcoin around like 5,000, and it was before it ran up to 7 or 8,000, something like that. So you will see that happen where a head and shoulders pattern, it will look so obvious, and then right here you'll wick down below it and then bounce right back up. A similar sort of thing played out on ZRX the other day. I posted about the first head and shoulders, which played out, and then the second head and shoulder, or actually, so there was a small one, a medium size, and then there was a bigger head and shoulders that was forming. So 2 head and shoulders played out, and then a third larger one was forming. So, I mean, it does kind of look like this head and shoulders is real at this point on ICX, but this is on a 1 hour time frame. So the extent, the lowest point, would be an equal distance from the head to the neck. So you're looking at 485 to 449. So that's, 3.5. So then you're looking at maybe, would that be accurate? It could be a little bit lower than that. So I'd say the kind of best case target price on this ICX head and shoulders would be, and they don't always go the full distance from the head to the neck, then below from the neck to a new kind of head distance. But just so you know, that's what it would be. That's kind of the ideal target for Head and Shoulders, is the same distance from this line to this line, or from this line to this line. So you're looking at like 4-1 area, if that really played out. But I do see it kind of bouncing on there. And if we zoom out, let's see, where do we have some volume support? Well, we do have quite a bit of support actually at 4-1, so that would be a place where it very likely bounce. But you see we also have quite a bit of volume support in this range, so it might not get down that far. Yeah, that does look like that pattern is confirming and that neckline is broken. But like I said, just be aware if it's a pattern that you're trading and you're selling based on that. This is a 1 hour time frame, so it's not an extremely powerful longer term pattern. But for day trading, yeah, you want to exit up this candle back towards the neckline, because that's something that very often happens when you get a confirmed break like this. It'll come back up, retest, and then it will fall down harder. So just kind of watch for those things. If it breaks back above the neckline, there's a pretty good chance that it's invalid and that the price will just continue going up. Let me look at some more of these chat items. Your audio is quiet. Yeah, let me know if it still is. I tried turning it up a little bit. You can elaborate on the VPVR and point me in the direction of where to find it. Yeah. So if you just go to the indicators, and it's the VPVR. This is the volume profile visible range. That's this over here. Now, what this is actually doing is showing you buying and selling in different areas of the chart, and it will automatically adjust based on the time frame that you're looking at and the amount of data that you're pulling in. Oh, my mouse freaked out there for a second. So when I include more price action, this will automatically adjust to include the data from that price action. So looking at a longer time frame always gives you better data on the VPVR. It's like you can see this, obviously, when we were down having that rounding bottom, that was an area of very strong support. This is an area of very strong support, which lines up perfectly with this right here, which is an area I'm kind of looking at, as you can see, based on those lines. And then this area right here. This is kind of the area where I expect us to stop if we do continue going down a little bit more right here. But, you know, there's a little bit of a gap here, but there's decent support here and very strong support right there. So, like I said, I'm not really worried about ICX on a longer term time frame. This is a longer term play for me, so I'm just kind of accumulating it at these lower levels. I see it doing something very similar to what Neo did earlier this year, maybe, you know, not nearly as far or fast as what Neo did this year, but, you know, maybe more like what Neo did last year. I can see something like that very easily happening with ICX, especially once Korea really finalizes some of their new laws and opens up the ICOs officially, things like that. Let's see here. What else can I look at this? Actually, here, let me just draw some lines with this, and then we'll look at Storm. Somebody was asking about that too. So you can see what happened here. This is part of why some people will call this a cup and handle, because you had that kind of pattern. But the thing with a cup and handle when you're identifying them, let me get rid of this because this is, there we go, now I can see better. So when you're identifying a cup and handle, you want to see decreasing volume along here, increasing volume along here, and then a fall and high volume breakout. I'm not really seeing those things. So even though this looks similar, the far side of the cup is above the low side. They're really supposed to be even. It's supposed to be straight across. So you can kind of see like this right here was kind of like cup and handle. And then you had this fall, and then you had some increasing volume on a breakout here. But it wasn't really that impressive overall. And this is a 4-hour time frame. So since this is a newer coin, you can use time frames like that to kind of identify some patterns. But really a cup and handle pattern is one that is supposed to play out over a long period of time. I would really look for them on a daily time frame mostly, not on anything smaller. That's just a personal preference for me. Because you can find plenty of other setups on lower time frames. You know, like this is a perfect setup example. You could have day traded this, you know, right here it tried to break through, but it had a strong fall, and you can see increasing sell volume, much stronger than the buying volume breakout. So that's a very obvious sign that that's not going to be a real breakout at that level. So once you had this point and this point, you could draw a little line there. And once you had this point and this point, you could draw a ray there. Now you can see actually I used this point because I just felt that that was a fake out, and I was drawing this on a higher time frame originally, drawing that line on the daily. So, but once you have these 2 points and you've got these lines, now we know that this is actually a wedge, descending wedge. And descending wedge is a breakout pattern. So you know chances are price is going to probably break out. So you see, okay, I buy then when price comes back to this line. So you buy here, and then if you want, you can also buy on the breakout, and then, you know, you would sell really probably at this shoulder, or if you just wanted to collect profit, you know, collect profit wherever you want along there. But when you see this kind of pattern develop, a little head and shoulders pattern like that, it's safe to try and sell the shoulder, you know, just to secure some gains, and then try and buy back in if you're day trading. So that's a good little, you know, small pattern that you can look for. Let's see what some other. So we got let's look at Storm here for a second. Oh, I really need to change the batteries in my mouse, I think. All right. Oh yeah. Are you talking to me in here? So for those of you listening, I can also hear the Discord, but the the broadcast is delayed from the Discord, so it's really confusing if people try and talk to me in the other one. But I'll do my best to look at the comments through Twitch here for you guys too. For those of you now that you've joined, more people are here. We're going to have recordings of these, and we'll be putting them up. We're going to try and transition more and more of the educational materials to this platform, just because it's so easy to record and archive, and then, you know, post to YouTube and very quickly upload to the community. So we'll be adding a channel to the Discord that will have video stuff like this. And I actually finished editing the setups, audio and video, from the talk last Thursday, that we did at 10 p.m. We are having another talk tomorrow night, actually. it's going to be on securities and utilities tokens, and we actually do have we have a securities lawyer that will be joining us for that, so that'll be nice. All right, so and actually before I go, well, did I want to say anything else? Yeah. Well, thanks for joining us. And you guys are welcome to share the Twitch whenever we're running it. We're going to be doing it for sure once a week on Wednesdays like this, but we'll also have people just jumping in from time to time throughout the week. So, if you see it up and running, just come on in and join us. And at some point, we will be actually adding members from the community, so you can do it yourself too. You can be involved in some of the streams. But that's later on down the road. But yeah, just before we switch to Storm here on the 4 hour, this is the same kind of thing I was talking about with Bitcoin. You see this CMF? Look at that. I mean, you could know right there. Price, it's going to continue to fall at this point right here. It comes down below zero, so you've got negative money flow overall into the token. And then it comes up and it tests and it bounced down. Like that's where you sell. That's a great sell. This is not financial advice. That's just my strategy. This is all for educational purposes. Just kind of telling you what I look at. And I'm not always right, of course. No trader is. If a trader ever tells you, oh yeah, I'm right all the time. Like, no, they're not. They're just lying. It doesn't matter. You're going to be wrong a lot. And that's why risk management is so important. You enter a trade and it turns against you, get out of the trade. Don't get attached to it. Don't be prideful about, no, I'm right. Just look for a better setup. That's fine. Worst case scenario, you buy in a little higher, but you buy into strength, and that's okay. Okay, so, but yeah, that's that CMF. You can see how that just fell off with the price. And that's a good sign that it's going to continue down. Okay. Let's see. Let's go to Storm. Where is Crypto Core? Someone asks. I don't know. He's around. He'll get in here too. He's just scared of the video. He doesn't think he's pretty enough yet. Low cap favorites. I think I'm not big on like super low caps. Some of the other guys and gals have talked about some of them, and I've heard about different ones, but like one of my lower cap projects that I'm really interested in is Syndicator. Because for low cap stuff, personally, I'm just more conservative. Like, yeah, of course, Tron, well, that's no longer a small cap, but I mean, just some of these like random projects. Of course, this stuff is going to pump. But just for my own trading strategy, I'm a little more conservative. I go mainly for stuff in the top 200, and I go for my smaller caps only into projects that have good TA and something I think is an actual product that has long-term viability. I don't day trade a lot of the smaller coins, even though I do realize that there's a huge market for that, of course, and there's plenty of those coins that pump. But it's just not something I pay a lot of attention to. I do more day trading of Bitcoin and Ethereum and some of the stuff that's available through BitMEX. Most of my longer term, like small coin trading is swing trades or investment trades. Okay. Can I scroll down in this? Oh, that's okay. Isn't that an incomplete cup and handle? Yeah, that's what we're saying. Welcome to chat. Greetings. Yeah, hey. All right, so that's all the comments for now. We'll look at that, but let's go back and let's look at Storm. I keep delaying this. Storm, Bitcoin. Okay, so this is a perfect example of why the Ichi can be so useful. You got a weak bearish cross right there on the 4 hour. That would have obviously, in retrospect, been a great exit opportunity. And that's one of those things where it's with TK crosses on the Ichi, it's almost always safer to follow them on the higher time frames and buy back in if they invalidate, because the strike rate on those Ichi crosses is really high, especially on more conservative settings. I mean, you can see the settings I'm using here. I use 10, 59, 120, and 30. And I like those settings for coins that have a long enough price history to use. For coins that don't, I do use just the standard default settings. So let's see here. I'm getting some problems with my mouse. I just need to change the batteries for you, for me. But while that's up, you can actually take a look at the VPVR that's there. You see this area had, the higher area there, huge interest buying and selling. And then down below, you can see that strong area of support. You know, we could get back down there. We're just kind of in the gap area right now, though. And it looks like, I mean, the RSI is really low, and the CMF is pumping up right now. I see higher highs and higher lows on the CMF with the price declining, and that's a bullish divergence. So I'll take a look at some of the smaller time frames when I switch the batteries here, because this may actually be a decent entry area. Alright, let's see. Gotta love the rechargeable batteries. I used to go through so many batteries. Now this stuff is super easy. Just recharge them all the time. And come back to life for me. Okay. And there she is. Alright, so let's see what's going on here. So obviously we are below the cloud. We had an Ichi twist, bearish twist. But this kind of thing, I do like seeing that. We can see what happened before, though, where that didn't play out. We didn't get a nice pump off of it. And we did just come up and bounce off the Tenkin, so we could bounce down one more time and kind of double bottom there. But let's see what's going on the shorter time frame. All right. So what is playing out here? With these kind of coins too, like going much below the hourly time frame, it's so hard to see anything. I just don't. Now with this, see the VPVR right now is just kind of not telling us a lot because we're looking at such a small area. So I'm just trying to get rid of some of the noise. Let's just look at price action. Alright, so I'm seeing the potential for some patterns. So let's look at this. Let's see what we've got. Okay, so we've got 2 points there. The start of this. Now, this is one of the things that there's a certain amount of subjectivity to where you draw these lines. And I always like to kind of play with a few different things and see what it looks like. This is one option, and that looks like, you know, that looks like a descending wedge. If I zoom out, you can see we had a peak here, We had some action here in the past. And so this is kind of an area, this is definitely an area of support. Looks like we're kind of sitting on that area right now. And as the price is coming down, the volume has also been coming down. So that's fine. I mean, that's generally a sign to me of, look for a reversal is really what that is. Because if the price is going down and the volume is increasing, that's not a great sign. That means that, the sell volume is increasing, especially if there is more red in here. But if you see the volume decreasing along with the price decrease, that means there's not a lot of interest in selling. And the interest kind of dies off over time. The people who wanted to take profit took profit, things like that. Oh, I guess my settings don't like that right now. Turn that back off. Okay. So, okay, that's not really telling me anything. So that's an option, or this is another option. If I can get it to attach to that. So that's kind of that's a descending wedge that doesn't look as bullish. That's one that could continue to see this price just bleed down. Where's my little drawing tool actually? We could see it do this, something along those lines. So, that tool, once you select it, you can't get rid of it. Another option with this is treating this spike as an outlier and just kind of using these points. Now, I do like that touches the price action a lot more. This, though, is no longer a descending wedge. That's actually a broadening wedge, if we do it that way. So let's see what we got going on here. Whoop. Okay. So we had this drop down, and you can see actually we've kind of had this same little pattern once there. So yeah, this little pattern is kind of the same as this little pattern. So we could very likely see that spike down again, and then a spike up to retest this one more time. Just looking at some of these indicators to kind of see what's going on. Money flow seems to be kind of flattening out, so we're not seeing a large outflow of money, which is good. We did see some increased selling volume on that rise, and then selling volume kind of dropped off, and buying volume has been increasing a little bit. Overall, not telling me a whole lot there, though. Let's see that VPVR again. I'm just kind of curious to this smaller time frame, what's happening. Let's see. So there's really nothing below us, obviously, because there's no price action right there. There's just this one spike, so I'm not too worried about that. I'm just kind of seeing some resistance areas. So right above us is actually an area of resistance. That's not great. And above that, there's a gap, so we would definitely see it get up to about this point. Yeah, for me right now, just because of where this is overall, I would personally not risk an entry right here. I would want an entry down here, or if price broke through the resistance over here. Because it's almost a parallel channel right now. So it's just kind of bleeding down. Storm was one that was shilled quite a bit on Twitter recently. A lot of people are, calling that a cup and handle. I'm not totally gonna discount that, but let's see. let me just look at the volume. This is, this is a coin that obviously has just pumped like crazy back there. So this is, this is one that will pump again for sure. It's definitely one to look for entries on. I'm just not sure exactly where that is based on what I'm looking at yet. And something I would do just on a longer term to kind of find where that entry might be is look at a longer term chart. Again, this is what I was talking about before I went to get batteries. So we've got this area of a lot of volume, and that's why you see this kind of distribution right there. And then this area, which is obviously a very strong area of support. So just looking at the price action, I can see that we've broken the trend. I'll show you what I mean here. So using that ray and just kind of taking the lowest point, that's not great. That's a bad sign overall. You also have this, CMF came down, tested break even right at that resistance, and it failed and came down farther. And so now you've got the RSI down as well. Where are we? We broke through 50 on the RSI, but this is the area where it could turn back up again. So for me right now, I would personally be waiting, like I said, to break out of this. You can risk buys along that support, but as you can see, it's just like bleeding. Not great overall. And then breaking that support. So, but let's see where the next support could be. Oh, look at that. It lines up perfectly with this area. And you can see actually how the VPVR just drew that line for you. You can draw more lines with the VPVR. I think it's, well, it depends on what kind of computer you have. For me, it's like Command H or something. I don't know, I have to look again. I hardly ever use that. Who does though is Epistemic Crisis. He uses those, he draws the lines, and you can just have it draw the line for you. So we can figure that out in a second. But this is one area, very strong support right there. So, long term, I might just leave some buys down there and hope they hit. Maybe it's just a wick, maybe it's a capitulation, that kind of thing. So that's one way to play that. Otherwise, let's see if we can draw anything else here. No, that broke. You could do something like this that just has these 2 points, uses this candle and the bottom of this candle on the daily. It's possible that that's what happens, and it creates that kind of this new trend, bounces right there. But there's nothing that's telling me that is actually going to happen, other than the fact that this area was support and resistance in the past. Well, at least resistance. Resistance there and resistance there. And now it has become potentially a support. That would be a good sign if that held. This is the volume in that area. Not the biggest, obviously, but still larger than the areas around it. So there's more interest, more support in that area. And I did see somebody calling for a buy on Storm based on some of these ideas actually earlier today. Let's look at a closer time frame now. So now that we have some of those lines drawn on the longer time frame, it's actually funny how you come in here and you see, oh look, price bounced right there, it kind of stopped right there, it came down and bounced there. So, the price kind of interacts long term with some of these things. You can see how that works. Obviously it's not perfect because this came up through there and things like that. So, but I am kind of expecting this to bounce back off this area or just below at that support. I don't really think it's going to break straight down or anything like that, especially seeing this on the 4-hour RSI. That's a pretty strong downtrend, but it is getting low and like I said, the volume is not showing a lot of interest in selling at these levels. So I do feel like this is just kind of some, maybe some people who bought up here and are getting a little scared, so they're selling, slash market makers who are just pushing that price down, trying to get better entries for themselves, and accumulate more, or scare some people out of their positions. So not really that worried about it personally, but I don't have any of this coin myself, so I can afford to not be worried. uh, I guess I would say I just don't see a lot that would encourage me to risk a position on it at the moment. That being said, let's take a look at what the Ichi's doing. I'm just going to pull up the default since this is a newer coin overall. So that's that same thing. We're seeing we had that TK cross back there. You can see again that would have been the place to exit. Because again, worst case scenario, if that TK cross had been invalidated, it would have come down, bounced off this cloud probably, and bounced up here, and then it would have had a bullish cross inside or above the cloud. So you would have sold around here or here, and then you would have had to buy back maybe here versus not selling here and selling down here. So you can see just from a risk management standpoint, I mean, that's a much better, it's a much better risk to sell right there and buy back here if necessary than to not and have to sell down here, because now you're in a bag that is below your entry, because there's a good chance you bought here, or if you're lucky enough to have gotten it back here, you're just facing the possibility of exiting with less profit and having to buy back in if it does bounce at this area, instead of having exited up here and then buying back in this area, or maybe even lower at this area. But when you draw these long-term charts like this, when you have a pattern one way, this trend is obviously trending down, and then these trends are trending up, you can place buys based on this. It would have been difficult to catch this one, but once you had that point and that point, now you have this point and this point. So from a risk reward standpoint, a buy right here and a buy right here, larger buy in this area, smaller buy in this area, those have low risk to reward potential. And if you were just trying to day trade it, then great. You have a buy down here, boom, you sold it right at that tenkin, you got a few percent return. Like I said, I don't do a lot of day trading though on alts, just because it's a lot of work. All right, so let's see. We got Ncash. Someone is asking about. I'll take a look at that in a second. I just want to look at the larger time. Oh, see, even on the default settings, there's no information on the daily with the Ichi. So we could move to the 1 hour or the 2 hour. What do we have going on? Oh, this is interesting though. So we did look at this hourly earlier, and I was talking about how that CMF had kind of flattened out. So you can see it came down, bounced off, bounced up again. It's, a little bit lower high at the moment, and the RSI is not really telling me a lot other than it failed below 50. It's not a great sign, but nothing too terrible. These are, and see, I'm just kind of talking to you about some of the things I'm thinking about while I'm doing this, because this is all just gathering data. This is all just gathering data is really what it is. So there's no, we've talked about this in a few of our discussions and roundtables and stuff. There's no one thing that's going to tell you everything you need. I'm just looking, and I'm trying to see what the indicators are telling me and what the price action is telling me. And just looking at price action right here, all I'm seeing is, I mean, potentially a little bear flag. I'm seeing some dojis here. A lot of uncertainty in the market. Nobody really has control. And then I'm seeing this red Ichi with the TK trying to cross itself. But again, this is a very low time frame, and these are kind of fast settings. So if you go back, you can see they kind of try and cross frequently. It tried to cross there, and then it crossed back down, and then it tried to cross there, and it crossed back down. So, oh no, it didn't even cross right there. Crossed right there and there. So yeah, you can see it cross here and cross back. So yeah, on these lower time frames, you're going to get a lot of false signals. That's why I like to use the Ichi primarily on the higher time frames. Except with BTC, I'll use it on the 1 hour sometimes too. With the coins, though, it's definitely going to give you more noise. So let's take that off just to kind of see what's going on. All right, so this is something I see right here. Let me just draw this for you. So looking at price action, I can draw that line straight across. Let me just change the color. So it's red now. All right, that's a resistance line. You can see we came down. It was support. It was support. It was almost support, and we fell through support. So you could have drawn this line right here. And then when you broke it, well, that would have been a perfect time to sell. And you already had those lines, so you could have tried to buy back here. So if you're day trading, from a risk management standpoint, that's a perfect thing to look at. And that way, you sold here, you bought back here, you at least increased your position. That's the very worst case scenario. And best case scenario, you just got a much better buy overall. If the price action comes back down, it's not like you are still holding a position from up here that you're selling down here. That's where you're losing. So this is why it's important to kind of figure out your own risk management and figure out what those rules are for yourself. And when we talk about risk management, this is what we're talking about is, entries, planned exits, whether in profit or not, and drawdown for your account. What are you willing to lose? And plans for finding an entry to get back your loss, but not revenge trading. You don't want to take a loss and then immediately take another trade just to try and get your money back. That's dangerous. That's where people lose more. And there's plenty of people, good traders, bad traders, everybody that you can talk to in the community, talk to about this idea. It happens all the time to everybody. It's just bad risk management. That's all it comes down to, and everybody's guilty of doing it from one time to another. So, but the other thing that this line tells you, if you draw this out, is after bouncing off this area, there's a good chance we're going to bounce back off this area, because this was support, now it's probably resistance. So that's something you can use. And it's not always that clean. That's a really nice clean line and bounce off that line. All right, so moral of the story, yeah, not seeing a lot that I personally like on Storm at the moment. But like I said, there is a chance that it could hold this level right here. All right, so let's look at something else. Let's look at Encash. I know a few people were talking about this the other day too. Let's see what we got going on here. Well, I mean, don't sell red candles. I can tell you that right away. If you're holding, figure out what you want to do. I personally don't sell red candles, especially below any recent low point. you know, this would have been one that I would have wanted to sell previously, you know, on probably like that break right there. That would have been a great place to sell. Um, I'm just trying to think like why I would have done that, or if I just would have missed it. Oh, okay. So this is interesting. All right, so let's look at a longer time frame on this one. And cash. All right. This doesn't look completely terrible on this longer time frame here. You can see though, like trend violated. Oh, this could actually here. Let me show you the fan theory. All right. So this is something you see in just trend theory and technical analysis theory fairly frequently. Looks like this is probably the better choice. And again, I'm just trying to, kind of drawing this what looks best at the moment. Let's see, what do we have going on here? Where would I have drawn that? I guess I would have drawn it maybe right there. And then, let's see, what would be, we don't really have a third one at the moment. But somewhere here, there's going to be another line, essentially. For now, I guess I can kind of draw that. So this is just kind of demonstrating a trend reversal. And that's, kind of what I see. Now, that being said, that may have already happened. And we do have some significant volume support right below us. We're just kind of in that gap right now. So down here, we're looking at a lot of interest, a lot of buying and selling. And that, that median level is 400. So, I mean, this is a pretty cheap coin. It's not one that I would personally, bet the bank on. But small positions in some of these cheap coins, not the craziest thing to do because they do pump from time to time. The issue with some of these, though, is that it's much easier to manipulate their price. So you can see some really big drops before there's a really big pump. And that's something, depending on what size position you have, I mean, it has to be something you're comfortable with, because if you get scared and you sell low, I mean, you're losing significant amounts of your portfolio that way. I mean, imagine if you bought one Bitcoin worth of this right now, and this wasn't the bottom, it retraced to its previous bottom at 240. I mean, you've got like 0.6 or 0.65 of a Bitcoin at that point. That's a significant loss to face. So this is one of the reasons that when I'm entering positions on some coins, if I'm trying to, essentially catch knives, or if I'm trying to find a bottom, I'll pyramid my entry. So I'm not buying all at once into the position. I have increasingly large orders down towards the areas that I see as support. So since we don't really have any horizontal supports right now, other than just this bottom point and this bottom point, if that is even a support, you can base it off horizontal supports. 400 is a horizontal support. I mean, the whole area from 410 down to like 386 is a horizontal support. And you can see why, too. The price action matches what the volume profile is telling you. So you could even take some of those areas. Let's just, here we go, get a little rectangle tool. So there was a lot of buying here down to this area right here. Okay. And then, oh, look at that. It kind of covers that same area. So we're right on that area right now. But as you can see, there's not as much volume support at the top. There's a lot more volume support down near the bottom of this box, based on some previous buying and selling there. So that is, low risk reward area is down towards the lower end of this box for sure for an entry. Other things I'm seeing though is RSI is matching price action. To explain this fan theory a little bit more here, you had this uptrend and price came down, it bounced off, great, still in an uptrend, bounced off, still in an uptrend, bounce, not as strong, and you can kind of see what's happening here too. You've got the buy volume on this bounce is really unimpressive compared to the buy volume up here. So this is one of those early warning signs. It's saying, all right, there's not as much buying, there's not as much interest. It's possible this trend might not hold. So then when you get a break of that trend, that's a place where maybe I might sell. So now we come down and we bounce here, and it would have been kind of difficult to determine that area before that point. You could potentially have drawn something from like this line to this line to maybe the bottom of that candle, but not a lot of information to work with is the point. So, but once you have that bounce, now you can draw this next line, and now you have a resistance and you have a support. So you see it kind of bouncing along this, and that would have been like, okay, after it bounces once, twice, this is a decent support. I can buy along this support. Down here you've got some RSI going up, so you can do that. And then, if you're swing trading, all you're doing is buying along this support, and then you're selling at that resistance. And you would have profited off that trade. So that would have been a great little trade. You could have been buying as low as, say, like 390 all the way up to 430, 440, and then selling at, 540, 550 area. And you probably wouldn't have caught the very top, but you had a few opportunities along here to just put some sell orders up there once you purchase down here. So that's how you can kind of use this, even if it's a possible trend reversal, like what I'm seeing here. I see it go bounce down, get rejected, bounce down, break, get rejected, bounce, get rejected, break down. So we're probably going to see this same thing play out again. Now, normally this does happen in threes, so it could have been 1, 2, 3, and then this is the last part of it. Yeah, the pattern, like threes tend to be a very common pattern just in trading. Lots of things happen in threes, drops, rises. This is part of what some of like Elliott wave theory is based on, but I don't use Elliott waves myself. I think, keep it simple, trend, Dow theory, things like that. And just if you listen to the talk on Sunday with Potato McGruff and myself, I was talking a little bit about trend, and we were talking about trend, and Crypto Cred was asking us some questions about it, and that the question he was asking was very important. If you missed it, it was how do you determine your directional bias for your trend? So once you've how do you determine, directional bias, bearish or bullish or sideways is another option. And my answer was price action. That's pretty much the entire way I determine my directional bias. So like right now, for example, my directional bias on Ncash would be bearish, just based on what I'm seeing right here. So I'm not really looking for a lot of buys. If I already have it, I'm looking for sells. If I don't have it, then even though my directional bias is bearish, I might look for some bottoms, but I'm not going to try and catch knives. I'm not going to buy into this candle right now. It's just not worth it to me, you know. Like I said, it's not a good risk to reward. I would rather wait until it finds a bottom like this, but where it did before. You see it comes down, boom, creates that, bounces, 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 3 bounces. That's great. That shows me, okay, there's a little uptrend here. The thing I have to worry about is it falling through that trend, of course. But I can draw a line that I can use. So once it creates another pattern like this, then that might have a lower risk reward for me, and I could buy, and I would place my sell orders right along this line to try and catch that rejection again. So that's just an example of something I might do. Let me look at some more of the... Oh, who is this streaming? Oh, I don't know what I did. Oh, I can't talk because I don't have the thing open. This is Nevermore. Bro, I bought 0.3 BTC into this shit. Oh man, I'm sorry. 0.48. I mean, long term, I don't know how to say your name there, buddy. Zimal. Long term, like, sure, this will probably bounce up. I don't know when. I don't know how soon. And it's entirely possible that this could be the bottom. You know, there's nowhere to tell right now. That's all. And I don't see anything that's showing me it's a bottom, especially on this higher time frame. Let's look at some lower time frames though, just to kind of do this a little bit more. And then somebody was asking about Walton, so we can look at some of that too. Okay. All right. Now on the lower time frames, it's a little bit easier to draw some of this stuff too. Oh wow, look at that. That was a perfect hit based on that trend. And really, like, you can see these lines could be a little bit lower if we wanted them to be. And then that way, I could have used an earlier point, and that still gives me that perfect, yeah, see, that's beautiful. All right, and same thing with this. Where's the point that I used? That's a little bit better. It makes that not as great, but that's okay. Okay. So let's see, what do we got? Came down, kind of broke through, little bear flag, broke down another bear flag, did another little bear flag, broke down. Chart patterns, not really seeing anything. This is, ooh, that's ugly. That's pretty much equal, wow. It's actually exactly equal. That's interesting. That seems like some amount of manipulation. All right, so let's see what else is going on here. We have some there. So the next kind of area of volume support just on the local is, yeah, that same thing. It's like 415 to 400 there. And if I zoom out a little bit more just to include all the data, yeah, I mean, that's that same thing. It's telling me the same thing even on the shorter time frame. So let's look at a 2 hour here. I'm just kind of curious what we could see with the Ichimoku. Yeah, I mean, that nothing looks good there. I will say though, the RSI is low and it's trying to curve up, but like for me personally, I would want to see a bullish engulfing candle. on the 1 hour or the 2 hour at the very least to attempt to call this area a bottom. So for it to be a bullish engulfing, this has got to go all the way back up and close above this red candle. If it closes above the body, that's good. If it closes above the wick, that's even better. If it just goes up though and bounces all the way back down on the next candle, that's kind of a nothing. That's not telling us much. What do we have here? We have the indicators just agreeing with the price action, basically. So not really. Oh, well, actually, okay. So we've got lower low, higher low. Okay. So that is a divergence on the CMF on the 2 hour. But on a longer time frame, not really seeing that much. So yeah, it looks like we're getting some amount of bounce here. So kind of interesting to see what happens on this bounce. On the shorter time frames, there's definitely some divergence at this area, and as you can see, somebody is trying to buy it, and the CMF is kind of flattened out. But there was some significant selling on that candle, so it still remains to be seen whether the buying volume can kind of come in and save it. Yeah, for someone with a very high risk tolerance, yeah, you could buy on this level and see what happens. For me personally, I just have a lower risk tolerance in that. I would rather buy in higher on a confirmed trend than just trying to buy into a spike candle. Really on no sort of resistance that I can map out. No support that I can really map out. Now, if I look at just some of these things to see what happened in the past, I do see obviously a bounce, 1, 2, and then potentially this in this same area. So let's just see what that looks like. Oh, shit. No, the stream is no longer family friendly. Get on it. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much a straight line. Those two bounces occurred. So that would be one of the more kind of bullish things that I would see on this chart. Is the fact that we've bounced here twice already, and we're trying to do it a third time. That's always good. Let's see what happened on those previous bounces, though. What did those look like? Yep, so you can see how that was kind of a bullish, that was a bullish candle. It closed, well, let me get rid of this so you can see this better. It closed up above that previous red one on the 1 hour. So that would be one that for kind of a longer term would say to me, all right, this is probably going to reverse. I'm going to try and find a trend. I wouldn't have bought at that point just because it is lower time frame. So I would have tried to draw this line out and try and put some, buys along that trend for sure. Because I would rather miss an entry and still have my BTC. Just from a risk reward standpoint, BTC is going to go up. If you don't think that Bitcoin is going to go up in value, I don't know why you're trading this stuff. I mean, Bitcoin is going to go up in value long term. So the game is finding things that will go up more to get more BTC, or just holding BTC. Some of these projects, sure, they're going to do a great business and they're going to have an amazing product, and maybe there will be some point in actually holding the token. There's a few companies out there that I do think the token is actually worth something. And obviously some of the bigger projects like Ethereum has a real use case for its token, so it makes sense to have and hold long term, aside from BTC. But long term, you're trying to increase your BTC. So just thinking about this stuff, you always want to buy something that's gone up 200% because it's going to go up another 200%. And maybe it will, but there's no guarantee at that point. So you're looking for these low risk scenarios where you can buy something and then you can increase your Bitcoin and then you can get more Bitcoin long term and hold the actual Bitcoin, not this token. That's why it's always more dangerous to be a majority alt holder. And yes, of course, the alts pump way harder than Bitcoin when they do pump, and that's great, and that lets you get more. But it's just something to be aware of, something to think about when you're trading these markets. Long term, Bitcoin is the thing that's going to go up until we see something that really can replace it or does. And that doesn't exist yet as far as anybody can see. There are obviously these other coins that have good use cases separately from Bitcoin too. Now, and so the reason I said that, just to recap, is because those are the kind of setups I'm looking for, these low risk scenarios where I can buy, and the amount of BTC I'm going to lose if I have to stop out of the position is small. You don't want to buy here and be wrong, if it hadn't gone back up, because it could have gone here and then just broken through support right there. A perfect example is right here. Like, I don't want to buy right here. That there's no reward, and that's a very obvious bear pennant there. And of course those can break up potentially too. There's not 100% strike rate on any of those price patterns, the chart patterns, pennants and flags and all that kind of stuff. And you can look this information up too. You can look up the strike rate for most charting patterns, I believe. We have some of that information, especially in the candle patterns chart area in the Crypto Mountain Discord. So you can check out some of those. Those price patterns that I posted in there, there's 5 of them on that first article, and their strike rate is like 80 to 90% or plus. The key is just identifying them properly. Same thing with the head and shoulders and the cup and handle. Those have a higher strike rate, but you have to identify them properly. All right, so yeah, this little jump is not impressive for me on Encash at the moment. And for the person who bought, let's see, 0.3, that's a lot of Bitcoin to buy something like that. All right, so you bought at 0.48. I mean, like I said, it hurts so much to sell on a red candle like this and have price bounce back up. Really, at some point, there's a really good chance the price is going to hit this line again. So there's a good chance you could actually sell at a small profit. But unless I see something really bullish on this, that's personally what I would be doing, is trying to sell kind of along this line, because as you can see, price might bounce even higher than that. But if you bought at 4.8 and you can get out at 5.12 here, or even 5, it's enough to cover fees, and you're pretty much break even. And if you really see a better setup in the future, you could always buy back in a little bit higher. It's not a big issue. But it's possible that this area won't hold and it could go down too. And I don't have a crystal ball. None of us do. I'm just trying to kind of see what I see. And yeah, so those are some of my thoughts on Encash at the moment. Let's go back. Thank you, Saber Or if we're watching The Office, Sabre. Let's look at something else here. Let's see if there's anything I want to actually talk to you guys about while I have you here. Oh, wow. Been on here for a bit. Yeah, and if for those of you that are just joining in, if you haven't been listening the whole time here, we will be doing these regularly. We'll have kind of random ones throughout the week, and of course there will be announcements when we are running it. This is just kind of the first one. We're just getting it set up. We'll have multiple people streaming at the same time at some point, so it won't just be me talking to you the whole time. And that way we'll do some of our like round tables and things like that in this. Oh yeah, Walton. Yeah, I'll look at that. We'll do some of the round tables and some of the other chats in here so you have the visual aids along with it, and it's all recorded. All right, let's look at Walton. Well, I mean, that looks... Okay. This is a 1 hour. So that looks like a bullish pattern, candlestick pattern there. But this CMF worries me. I would really want to see that turn up. You know, the RSI has an obvious uptrend just over this area, and actually that is divergence. You see right there, lower lows, higher lows. That is a form of bullish divergence. And don't worry so much about whether it's hidden or standard or anything like that. People use the word hidden divergence just because they think, ooh, it's hidden. It's just a name. It's just a label. Don't worry about that. All right. So things that I see, got a lot of buying interest down in this level. Let's just draw the longer term lines first so we can kind of see what's going on. Ooh, oh, I like that. I mean, you can see it right there. You've got higher highs, higher lows. I mean, that's a good looking chart. The thing that's not so great looking is just the volume. You know, we do have falling volume, but, you know, we have falling volume with a bullish trend. I mean, you really want to see the volume increasing. That's a better sign, but it's not, you know, it's not the end-all sign. So let's see. Okay, let's draw these lines. So we've got the magnet mode on. We've got the ray on. Let's check this out. What do we got here? Okay, so that's the lower support for price, but obviously it did create this kind of higher angle recently. So let me see if I can, I'm going all over the place here. Let's see if I can draw that. Perfect. So you can see how you could have drawn this line once you had those 2 points. And then you see this, and you're like, oh, okay, this is way far away. I can be collecting profit. And then you just place your buys right down along that line. These are the smaller buy-ins and the larger buy-ins down along that line. You know, and this is a conservative strategy. There's no guarantee you're actually going to hit that line in price. But you still have your BTC, like I said, or your ETH, depending on what you're trading on. But just a note of caution, if you are trading like LTC or BNB or ETH against some of these altcoins, those are probably not going to be the primary volume market. So for example, on this daily time frame, you look down here at volume and you can see these numbers changing. That's the daily volume, you know, and so the daily volume was much higher, but you always want to chart the exchange with the the exchange with the highest volume, which for most alts right now is Binance, and you want to chart the pair with the highest volume. So like for BTC, obviously, it's the USD pair on Bitfinex. That is the highest volume pair, highest volume exchange. With most alts, the highest volume pair is BTC. So if you're charting something using ETH versus Walton, for example, you might not get good data. Just be careful of that, that's all. You want to get the best data possible, and that's typically going to be the BTC pair. Okay, so we've got this line, we've got this trend now. We have the slow trend and the increasing trend here. So the next trend will likely, be a higher, more like this and this if we get it. And you can see, obviously, on the taking all the data into consideration, this is the strongest area of buying volume. But we have this area developing right here, this area developing, this area developing. This is kind of a resistance for us right now. This is a little bit of a support, and we're kind of in that gap. And it does look like we're bouncing. It looks like we're kind of creating this little bit higher trend on that longer time frame. So let's see if we can get any information from the Ichi. And I do coins that I can get information on higher time frames on the Ichi setting. I really like that because that can tell me a lot. Like this right here, this is the exact setup. And actually, I'm going to upload the video today, so it will be in the new channel for everybody from the TA chat and setups chat that we had with some of the founders and contributors to Crypto Mountain. We had this chat last Thursday. So I'll be uploading that when I finish here. Now, so what I'm seeing here is I'm seeing a bullish TK cross below the red Ichi cloud with price action below the cloud but above the cross. Now that is technically a weak bullish TK cross. However, it is something I look for after a long retrace. So you can see we had this long retrace, we broke down, we had a false signal there, got close, but just kind of bounced off. And then you have finally the start of this new trend. So, and again, I didn't even have to draw this line. That was already there. That was based on this point and this point. So when the price comes down and bounces there, that's a great sign to me. I'm like, okay, it's respecting this trend as long as it can hold that trend. So let's see what we've got here. So we've got that cross. Now the price did come back down below the Kijin. That's not great, but it is starting to bounce back above it. So if this daily candle can close inside there, that's a good sign. And honestly, if I was trading this, as long as it can hold inside this cloud, that's good. I like that. I always want to see that kind of thing. Okay. Now, let's see here. And some of these things that I'm using, also you will understand a little bit better when you watch the video of the TA setups chat that we had from last week. So I'm just kind of going over all this stuff quick. I'm curious just to see my own custom settings, what they're telling me on this coin. All right, so I'm getting a similar I'm getting some similar information. Got a TK cross. The difference is, though, we came up and we bounced off the cloud pretty hard. So I really, I would want to see us enter the cloud and get above that Tenkan. That would be an even more bullish sign to me. Because I could see us right now coming up, bouncing off that Tenkan, coming back down, and bouncing off this support one more time before we really enter that cloud. Not saying that that is definitely what's going to happen, it's just a possibility. I see. All right, so let's see here. Take those off. Let's look at shorter time frame just to kind of see what's going on here. So we already have these trends drawn, so that makes it easy for us. And generally when I am entering a position, I'm just going to put buys along a trend line if I'm trying to enter. you know, because that's an easy place to put buys, and then I'll look for other setups, you know, just so I don't miss out completely. But let's see what we have here. We've got higher low, higher low, higher low, higher high, higher high, higher high, higher high. That's great. Higher low, and now we've got a lower low from here, but not from here. So overall, the trend is still a interim or midterm kind of bullish trend, because this is what, how many days old is this? This is the 5th. Yeah, I mean, this is like this is a whole month now. So this is a whole month trend. So yeah, I mean, that's an interim trend right there. And then you've got this short-term bearish trend right there, and we just kind of broke through it. If I zoom in, I can chart that just a little bit better. You know, and you can see, like, this isn't rocket science. This is pretty easy. We're just kind of looking at what price does. So that is a little trend right there. It's kind of played with it a little bit and then broke out of it. So yeah, I'd say technically we broke out of this bearish trend. I could draw it even a little bit more if I just used this point now. So boom, there. Okay, so we broke out of that. So that's a good sign. This, like I said earlier, might be a bearish pattern, might be kind of a bullish pattern, a bullish flag there, but we'll have to look at a lower time frame. And like I said, this CMF, it worries me. Just that's not a great sign. I want to see like money flowing in to this asset, not out of it. And that's what I'm seeing right now, is I'm seeing money flowing out of it on that CMF. So let's look at a shorter time frame. Same thing on that time frame. So these kind of patterns can break either way, just so you know. I'm going to go down to a 15-minute. Let's see what's going on here. All right. So you're going to get some crazy wicks like this. I'm just going to discount that as an outlier there. Maybe somebody opening a larger position or trying to kind of manipulate the market a little bit, trying to break it. Because when I draw this, you'll see what I'm talking about. We've got this, and we've got this. Okay, so that's a little kind of symmetrical triangle. Symmetrical triangles can break either way. It's hard to tell what they're going to do. So you have to kind of look at other stuff, and I see some declining volume, but some increasing buy volume and declining sell volume. So that could be a good sign. We've got the CMF on the lower time frame. It is actually trying to curve up. So even though we have that sharp drop on the 30-minute and the hour, it looks like it is trying to reverse. But that's that candle that just happened. Okay, so that's kind of a market bottom on the 5-minute potential there. Right, so we see this kind of curving up. Now, a really bullish sign would be if it crosses zero, because you can see kind of what happens whenever you cross zero on that. You'll see a little pump afterwards, you know. So if you're trading, especially day trading, just trying to scalp, that's a great thing. Because right now, what could happen is it could come up and just bounce down, and you see what happens there. Boom, bounces down, boom, bounces down. So you want to see that kind of cross, otherwise it's not a bullish sign yet. So if you can get price action to break out of this, but not just a wick like this, you want to see it actually break and hold, and kind of maybe climb that, or just go for a run afterwards. What we can see is there's a gap, so we are kind of sitting right at support right now. If we break down from there, we're probably going to fall right back to this area. It'll just retrace the full distance of that previous move, and that's something that often happens. Let's see. So symmetrical triangle, I'm generally just looking for it to break one way or the other. It's a no trade zone. I'm waiting to see what happens, and then I'm trading, trading the breakout. The other option in a symmetrical triangle is sell the resistance, buy the support, stop loss below, stop loss above, depending on what you're doing. So if you sell the resistance, then you put a stop loss up above. You can see, of course, that can go badly, because you could have sold this and then stop loss here and bought back into this, and then the price came right back down, and so you're screwed. And that does happen. So it's something to be aware of, something you have to be careful of, but barring that situation, every other one would have been good. You know, if you'd sold it, well, you couldn't have really sold it. Once that was there, you could have, but that would have been difficult to see. Like, you could have sold there, you could have sold there, things like that. So, and with support, you could have drawn the support line based on this point once you had it. So you really could have bought right there, and you could have potentially sold right there. So that's a quick little scalp, just based on the geometry of this pattern, and that's that. You know, selling the resistance, buying the support. And if it breaks down through, you know, if you buy right here, for example, if you buy on that support and then it breaks down, you stop loss out, very small loss, you look for a new entry. It's not a big deal. You know, it's much better than not having a stop loss and then selling down here somewhere. So yeah, I mean, I keep watching that. We've got 11 minutes left on that candle. I would watch for it to bounce here or break down there, because it looks like it's headed towards that support. So we will see it do something, have some price action at that level soon. All right. So let's see. IOTA. I actually haven't looked at IOTA in a long time. Let's see what it's doing. Now, I don't actually know what has the highest volume on IOTA, so it's something I would check. So I'll look at the Bitfinex volume on the daily. So we're looking at 3 million area. And Binance, it's 13 million. Well, that answers that one. So and look at that. I have some lines. Apparently I have looked at it at some point. I wonder when I drew that line. Huh. Interesting. Okay. I'm going to replace that line now with a ray, just so that... And this is another outlier, so I'm just kind of... I'm using... that's an interesting resistance there. Let's see. Yeah, that's a great line, actually, right there. You can see, especially since it's the daily, I mean, it's kind of better to use these on the daily, but you could see, if you were trying to trade a breakout, you would have bought much later doing that than if you were trading off of kind of this high point and then, you know, this right here, top of that candle. And actually it's better, let's see what's the best area to use. So we couldn't have drawn that line until there, potentially, unless we used this point. Oh geez, this keeps moving all over the place on me. Alright, there. So that's nice. Like, I like seeing boom, 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 lots of touches along that line. You know, and the opposite would be once you have this point, this would have been the point though. So you could have drawn that there, and then you could have bought the breakout right there. Because you'll notice that breakout candle is on increased volume. So you've got decent volume, boom, increased volume. That's a good breakout to buy. That's a volume supported breakout. And plus you can see you've got a trend on the RSI going up, potentially, more room at that point. And where did this bounce? So, and of course now we can see that there's a lot of buying volume in that area. How could you have determined this before that point? Well, that line, like I said, so the breakout. And other than that, this here, like you would say this was resistance and then support, and then you draw that line straight across, and that same kind of area, it was a little bit higher that it stopped, but similar area where it bounced there. Okay. The other way to draw this is drawing it as a wedge. So you can draw that, and once you have this point in the price action, you can draw a line. So you've got those 2 points and let it draw itself out. And now you have this wedge pattern, and you can say, okay, we bounced here. Great. We're probably going to break out of it at some point. So again, you don't try and gamble in that area. You trade the breakout. That's one of the best ways to do something like that on a higher time frame. Now let's see though if we could have gotten the signal earlier. So let's open the Ichi. All right. It looks like not really, because you can see breakout, but under the cloud. Ichi, TK cross is above price action, not strong. And then you've got another TK cross, a bearish TK cross. And that was actually a pretty strong bearish cross that invalidated. So that's something to be aware of. You got to be careful with that kind of stuff, because you could have sold there or shorted if you were trying to trade on margin, and that could have gone very badly. So that would be where, when you see that break of that previous resistance right there, you'd want to get, back into the position or out of it if it was a short, for example. So, but now you've got that TK cross, and that was in the same area. That was the bullish TK cross with the volume, the volume increase right there on that breakout. And you can see the volume doing that from there to there even on that breakout and continuing to increase. So that's all, those are good signs. Same thing, the RSI is showing, you've got some higher lows, got some higher highs, that's all good, higher lows. So all those things are kind of confirming that movement for me, that's all. Now let me see what the difference would be. So yeah, the conservative settings still would not have given me an earlier call on that. But you'll notice we did break out of the cloud, which is good on the conservative settings. And we definitely broke out of the cloud on the default settings. We've got a twist on that and a twist on the conservative settings. So IOTA is looking bullish. It looks like it's in kind of a bullish trend. You've got, this little pattern that's being created, definitely finding some resistance in this area. And you can see that the volume profile is telling us that yes, there's some support and resistance here. This is an area of increased interest in buying. That's what I'm seeing on that. The moon. So yeah, and this doesn't mean that IOTA can't fall back down here. A lot depends on Bitcoin right now. If Bitcoin falls, or if Bitcoin just goes on a tear. Either way, alts are probably going to fall. So Bitcoin really has to go sideways or climb slowly. Those are the two things we want to see Bitcoin do in order for alts to continue their run right now. And while there's lots of calls of alt season right now, it could be, and I'm personally hoping it is. But often in alt season, there is a pre-pump and then a big retrace, sometimes even below the low point of the market previously, and then the big pump happens. So, don't get prideful in your position. Be aware of that. Be willing to exit the position if necessary. Um, so let's look at some lower time frames just to kind of see what's going on with IOTA here. Okay, well, that's nice. Nice little trend. So now that we're getting in closer, we can try and find what's going on with the trend on the smaller time frame. So we see we've kind of been bouncing off the Ichi here. If we break below that, we're going to get a bullish T or a bearish TK cross above the clouds. So that could see some price action come down. Basically the thing we don't want to see is we don't want to break down below here. This area is the recent low, and if we break down there, then we have lower high and a lower low. All right, so let's see. And this area here could provide a lot of support just because you can see there's significant. But we really want to see, we don't want to see the low break a previous high like this, and we don't want to see it break a previous low. Those are reversal signs. And this doesn't look great, going to be honest. But this and this, that just looks like accumulation. So that looks like maybe some whales getting in or something. I don't know if there was something that caused this recently, just a crazy pump, but that's what I see is like that just looks like accumulation. Those are huge. That's somebody that just believes it's going up or knows, dun dun dun, that it's going up, and so doesn't care so much about the price point that they're getting in down here. They're just trying to encourage the market to buy, essentially. All right, so let's draw some lines here. I'm just going to kind of pick one of the low points. So that is one trend. Just pick one of these points and then do this. So this is kind of the increasing trend. We could just, oh no, I can't do that. Never mind. So I already put that there. All right, let's get rid of the Ichi though, just so we can see a little bit easier. Asking about bearish short-term period for altcoins. No, not necessarily. I'm just saying that that has happened in the past. If you look at, well, let's see, IOTA's not really old enough necessarily to see this, but I mean, you can kind of see like there was a market bottom here, there was a pump, pre-pump, big retrace. So it retraced, it looks like kind of 50% of that move, which is pretty standard. And then boom, another pump, but this was really the pre-pump. And for a lot of these alts, we've just broken out of these long-term downtrends. And this is pretty much all alts. This is why everybody has been saying, alt season, alt spring, whatever you want to call it. But it's based on this. It's based on breaking out of these long-term resistance and downtrends. Basically the same thing that BTC just did. But the market has three trends. It has down, it has up, and it has sideways. This could just be sideways. This could actually be all the sideways action before the market really gets into a price discovery. So this could pump 1,000% from here very easily. Or this could be, on a shorter time frame, this can be a pre-pump, and we could see price come back down to this support, or even drop down here, and this could be a larger downtrend that we're not aware of yet. But this is why you're always going to have conflicting trends. You're going to have trends on different time scales. And that's why identifying trend and, basing a lot of your TA off of trend, off of price action itself, is one of the most powerful things you can do, because indicators help give you more data about what's happening, but most of them are lagging indicators, so they are telling you about what has happened. The price action itself is telling you what is happening, and you can kind of base a lot of what you're doing off of the price action itself and the trend of the price action. Because looking at IOTA right now, the midterm trend or the interim trend is certainly bullish. You know, you've got boom, like this, like this. You know, this though, it's a sign that there's some momentum is slowing. That's all. But that could be a false sign because of this huge buy. That can throw stuff off. So we can see it's kind of retracing. It looks like it kind of wanted to retest this line, but it didn't get there because of this big buying action. And maybe there was some story or something that came out that caused that to happen as well. I don't know. I'm just looking at the price action. I don't care so much about some story that caused it. You know, this is just what I can kind of determine based on the price action alone. So I look at that. I see there is some declining money flow overall, but also, let's see, boom, boom, what is this? This is still technically a higher low. And then I just kind of see some symmetrical action on the RSI, so not a lot, technically still a bullish trend right there. But that's just confirming the price action. The price action is telling me the same thing, so the RSI is not telling me anything new or different. So I can pretty much ignore that for now. You know, what the RSI does tell me is that it's still above 50, and an RSI above 50 is a bullish RSI. RSI below 50, just from classical TA and classical charting, is considered kind of a bearish RSI. Especially an RSI that comes up to 50 and fails to break it. That's bearish. An RSI that comes down to 50 and turns back up, that's very bullish. And these are not hard rules, but they are guidelines. Okay, so yeah, I mean, as long as IOTA holds that area, that's great. Or like I said, if it can hold above this area, that's good too. For me personally, again, more conservative, I would put my buy orders here along this line. In this area, you know, 23.4 to 23.8 looks pretty decent to me. And that would be my smaller orders. I would have larger orders down here. But like we were talking about earlier with this fan principle, this is not technically a fan because these trends, I'm not starting them in the same location. So, you know, there's a better way to do that. But it will hold the same kind of principle. If this comes up, goes like this, comes up again, comes down, and breaks through that trend, there's a real good chance it'll come down, bounce right there. You can see why. Bounce right there on this slower trend, and then come back up and retest here. And there's a good chance that, you know, it would fail in this area. So you could play that. You could actually buy here, you know, small order here in that area I was talking about, larger order down here, and then a sell order up here. And that's a swing trade, you know, that plays out potentially over this whole month. It's entirely possible, though, that IOTA could just come down here and continue that bullish trend. So that's something, again, it's difficult to predict the future. We're using these tools to do our best, of course, but a lot of what we're doing is just, we're using these tools to find the lowest risk-reward opportunities. That's it. That's all we're doing. And that's what you really want to be doing during trading. You want to, like I've talked about several times in this feed, you want to find the lowest risk reward scenarios. And then, you know, well, where do I sell? This is a great way, and Epistemic Christ talks about this in the video I'm going to be posting after I'm finished with this. You can use the VPVR to determine selling places. Unfortunately, with IOTA, there's not a lot of information. We're kind of at an area right now of volume support. If we break down from there, like I said, like this would be the next really big support area. But there's not a lot of information to work with on a longer time frame. So, I mean, you could just put like sell orders here and here, because that's where it was previously. Or you could put, you know, a more reasonable sell order right here, because there's a good chance that price will hit that level at some point. Another thing I see that I just noticed that I like right now, I want to point out to you, is volume up, volume down, price down, volume back up before price breaks out, and volume continuing to rise overall along with the price action. That's a very healthy pattern. That's something you really do want to see. So that's good. Obviously, there's a big red candle here, so be careful. But let's look at the lower time frame again. 1 hour. So this is a perfect example of, you know, that like looks like it could have been a bullish, you know, pattern, but then it broke down out of it and it kind of bled down. So, you know, flags can break either way. You just got to watch for that. Now, what else we got going on here? So on the low time frame, I do see some volume support right here. That's what that red line is showing me. And that's just from the VPVR. It draws it for me. It's automatic. It's based on the largest volume area in your data set. Okay, so that would be, you know, interesting place to put some buy orders. No guarantee they're going to hit, because RSI can still come down. You can see I actually have my RSI set to 20, so I have a more conservative RSI setting. Gives me fewer calls, but more accurate too. All right, so yeah, CMF is not looking real great. Let's try and draw a little line here and see what we can find out. So this would be kind of a more conservative line. This would be a more aggressive line. So you can see kind of based on those two lines what happened. The aggressive line from the real peaks, the price action did break through, but then it kind of bled down. Whereas the more conservative line from where there was more price action, less just like spike, you know, because you can see up here, like look over here, there's hardly any buying and selling happening at that level. But you get down to this level and there's a little more buying and selling happening right there. So I'm more confident placing this line than this line. Just so you kind of understand some of my mindset and why I would discount that wick. All right, so let's look at this. Yeah, so, you know, that looks kind of interesting. This could be a little wedge, little descending wedge, and price action could very well break through there and turn a little bit bullish on us. So that could be a breakout play if anyone's looking to try. What you'd want to see is you'd want to see increasing volume on that breakout. And you can see there is some resistance, volume resistance right there. We're kind of inside the gap right now, and it looks like price is trying to bounce a little bit. And the CMF is curving up, and we do have a higher high, or I'm sorry, a higher low. Last time it went up, though, it did, this is what I was talking about before. It came up, it bounced off the midpoint, so that was kind of a bearish, oh, what's the word I'm looking for? That was a bearish failure. So that's a failure swing right there, bearish failure. All right, let's see here. You will probably see people trying to call this cup and handle. I would not look for that pattern on a 1 hour chart. It's more likely than not fake. Even if it looks close, and even if the price action plays out, it's not a real cup and handle. It doesn't follow the rules of a cup and handle. So you'll see a lot of people on TradingView or Twitter, especially newer traders, posting all these charts of this stuff, cup and handles and head and shoulders. And they're not following the rules because they don't actually know the rules. They haven't actually read the rules of the pattern. They don't know what it's supposed to do. They only know what it's supposed to look like. So just kind of be aware of that. Okay. Yeah, that would be a breakout play that I'd be interested in. I would play it on the breakout, or if price action comes back down, like this volume area that I was talking about, that volume support, which is around 24.2, 24.1. It's not, with some of these things, there's no guarantee that it's going to hit that level. I'll often put a buy a little bit above it, just in case, because that area, even when I zoom out, I guess it kind of redraws. It's a little bit lower there. But if I take all this into account, there's some pretty decent support in that level. So, and as you can see, it did break down a little bit, but it did bounce back up after it. So this is an interesting area for me to place a buy, or on the breakout of this resistance. Make sure it's a real breakout, not just a wick above it, though. And the other place that would be interesting to me would be down here as a buy. And then, of course, if we saw more bearish signs, then down in this area it could be decent. But those are some of the areas that I would look to buy personally. But yeah, in the longer term, IOTA looks good to me at the moment. I don't see anything that's worrisome. It looks like it's in a decent bullish trend, but like I said, we did just have these two tops, so I really want to see this trend hold for now. Yeah, that would be something important to me. And to play the breakout, do you put a buy order just above the trend line, or would you market buy when you see it breaking the trend line? There's two ways to do that. You can market buy it once you have a confirmed break, or you can just place a buy at the resistance after it's broken above it. There is like an 80% chance that it's going to come back and retest that previous resistance, now support. So there's a good chance you're going to get into that trade based on that. That's how I got into the HSR trade, on the confirmation of the cup and handle and the breakout. And I was able to sell for a huge profit afterwards because of the listing that it had. But now it's back down to the buy area. I'm looking at buying back in. So I got to go take a look at that chart though. So yeah, those are both viable options. Obviously, with the market buy, you're going to pay generally a higher fee. So that's something to consider, and you will buy at a slightly higher price. But if you're looking at a breakout of a pattern like this, you are hoping to see a higher high afterwards. So the risk reward would still be decent, and worst case scenario, like, you could probably sell at the previous high there. But again, stop losses are always good, and the market can change on you. You just have to be aware of those things and pay attention, especially with some of these shit coins and stuff. And IOTA, yeah, like, IOTA's an interesting project. I actually owned IOTA right after it first came out. I bought a whole bunch of it at like 16 cents to 23 cents area, and I sold all of it above $1 way back in the day, and I haven't touched it since. I think the idea behind IOTA is amazing. I think it's too early, and I know actually who did that? Carpe Noctem, I think, just did a big write-up on IOTA that I have not read yet. I don't think it is a positive write-up, but I do want to go look. Yeah, absolutely, Saber, no problem. Okay, and so there was EOS or ELF? I know that Whalebear Man has been following EOS really closely. I would definitely see what he has to say about that. But I can take a quick look. Let's see what it's doing. All right, so it had this huge run. Well, you can see where I was looking at it previously. I was kind of expecting this, you see, to happen again. So, and it did, as you can see. So I think there's a good chance that we'll see that same pattern play out. But let's see. Let's look at the 1 day. Damn, look at that chart. That's a beautiful chart. I originally bought this way back here, and I think I sold it here. I wish I still had some. Oh well. Should have bought it on this pattern breakout. And if you look at this, and you go look at the ZRX chart, this exact same pattern is playing out on ZRX right now. So I am fully expecting this next part to play out on ZRX as well. All right, so let's see. What have we got? We've got, all right, so some uncertainty on the RSI here. Still a bullish trend overall, but you can see that this long-term trend here has broken down a little bit. Getting a pretty steep decline here, that angle, just kind of looking at price action. I'm going to look at the Ichi though. So this is the conservative setting. We're really far from this Ichi cloud. And the Kijun is flat. So just based on like what I know about Ichi trading, I would say we came up, we bounced off the Tenkin is coming down. There's a real good chance that you could get buy orders in at the Kijun. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but there's a good chance. That's all. Because that Kijun, you'll notice, look at that. Perfectly lined up with the bottom of the Ichi cloud, and I'm going to bet that's the 50% fib line for this move. I could calculate it just real quick. Let's see, from this area, we just take 10 to 24. So that's 14, half that is 7. So 10 to 7, ooh, nope, it's not the 50% for that, but we did just kind of bounce off the 50% for that part of the move. But if we really take the bottom of this to the top, let's see, because that's more where this is measuring from. We've got 5, 5, we can just say 6, so that's 18. And that's 9. So from 6 to 9, that is about right. That's about the 50% fib for that entire move. So in a bullish trend, price action very frequently will retrace 33%, 50%, or 66% of the entire move. And you can take any move and you can apply that. That is trend theory, that's part of just technical analysis, trend theory in general. So, you could see like this move, for example, with that big candle. You've got 8, 7, 8, so we'll just say 8, 8 to the top there is 13. So that's almost 5, so it's like 4 point something, so halves, 2, we'll just say 2.5. So let's see, let's add, we got plus 2.5, 9, 7, it's not quite. So that retraced a little bit more. That retraced more, a little bit more than 50% from there to there. So that's probably a 66% retrace right there. So that followed that pattern, and then this one I think did the 33% so far on this move from here to here. And that is 10, we already determined, so it's 24, so 14, so 33%, what are we looking at? So it's 14, so what is that, 5? Well, not quite, so 4 something. And what do we see here? Yeah, retraced like 5, 6, yeah. So that retraced about a little bit more than 33%, not quite 50% of that move. Yeah. So those are just, and you can see they're not hard rules, but they do. I mean, they're good guesstimates. They're good averages. So that's what that is. So that's the daily. Now, let's see what else we have here. We've got a lower high and a higher high on the CMF. Declining volume. So lower high on the volume as well. Those are 2 red flags to me. That I would say we could see more retrace. Just the fact that we're so far from the cloud, the indicator has kind of flattened out. It's not in an uptrend anymore. Like you can see where, you know, that would have been the place to sell after it flattened right there on this candle. And then, let's see here. And then, of course, buy back in, you know, down here if possible, or somewhere in here. Same thing there. We're just kind of seeing the start. We had a peak, and then a little bit of a downtrend. All right, so let's look. Oh, actually, before we switch, let's just see what this looks like. So this is not as scary as the conservative settings. You know, price action might retrace a lot less, and actually that would make sense if we bounced right there and created a little double bottom. So I would watch for that to happen, and we can get closer and we can draw some lines in there so you can kind of see where the resistance is and where the support is. But, I mean, you can see what I'm doing, and you can do this too, and you'll get more confident as you continue to do it. And you see when it works and when it doesn't, and you can try and figure out why it didn't or why it did. All right, so I'm switching back to the conservative settings, and it looks like we are about to get a bullish cross on the conservative settings above the cloud. That's a great sign, actually, and we are sitting at this kind of volume support area. So the CMF doesn't look great, just, you know, but I also have a very quick setting on my CMF, so it gives me lots of bounces, lots of calls. It shows me money flow faster, but there's more false information, so you just got to be aware of that. I have a more conservative setting on the RSI, so it gives me fewer calls, less noise, and slower information. So that's what that is. Same thing with the EG setting. This is it's a much higher setting, so it's more conservative, lower frequency, it's slower information. Okay, let's see, what do we got here? Now, inside the cloud, cross. I don't really see a lot of information on the shorter time frame from that EG. I see more interesting information here because we came down, kind of bounced along the bottom, held that Tenkin, got back below it. So we've got a bullish cross happening, but price is below it. So it's kind of a mixed signal. It's not as strong as it could be. It is above a green cloud though, and that's typically a pretty good sign. I would want to enter that trade only once price was back above this volume support and above that Tenkin, that blue line. That's what I'd really want to see. You know, it could be a gamble to enter now. You know, I would just hold tight stops on that. You know, because you can see short term, we do have a little bullish trend from the bottom here. Kind of following that. Let's just get rid of the Ichi for a second, and we can look at some more trends. So, let's see, not a lot of volume buying up there at that tip, so we can see what it looks like with and without it. So taking the top and this, we broke through, so we're potentially doing some sideways action. We have a little ramp, little bullish ramp right there. All right, and then we've got this action going on. So let's see. So again, kind of this is a bullish flag pattern on a larger time scale, as you can see there. But it broke out, and the breakout did have some increased buying volume. That's a great sign. We've got this kind of rounding happening here, which is not great, but it's not terrible. And I already told you about some of the Ichi stuff that's happening. So it is entirely possible, especially based on this larger data set here. No, we're still okay. So we're still in this kind of resistance area. Let's draw the other line just to kind of see. Yeah, and these two lines are essentially telling me the same thing. So there's not a big difference taking the top versus just the top of the body on that. So I can pretty confidently say that we broke out of that. So I'd definitely be looking for buy orders along here, and then of course stop lossing out below just in case. Like I said, we do have the potential to fall much farther based on the longer term Ichi, but we can stay far away from that cloud for a long time too. It's not a big deal. So let's move down to the 2 hour. Yeah, I'm seeing pretty much a similar sort of story here. There's a chance, yeah, I mean, there's a chance that this is not a bad entry on EOS. I can see a better entry, you know, down here for sure, and then a stop loss if we break that. But I would pay a lot of attention to this trend. I really want that trend to hold. If it doesn't, that's a real bad sign. Yeah, that's not really telling me a whole lot. You can see there's kind of a parallel channel. So if you want to see that in action, actually no, I don't want to use that. Those are annoying. Oh no, go away. I don't like pitchforks. You can just draw a parallel channel using this to that. Oh, and I did it the wrong way. Why am I stupid here today? Yeah, just kind of taking those points into account. So you can see the parallel channel is actually a little bit higher angle, and then you've got some, you know, points where it's bounced off there, and a good buying area down here. No guarantee that it's actually going to come down that far, of course, because if you look, well, yeah, I mean, the RSI says it could come down, and the CMF looks like price is coming down a little bit. So if we look on a lower time frame, yeah, same thing. Yeah, I think we'll probably have some buying action in here. I'd say this is the area to buy, personally, based on my own ideas. Obviously, this would have been the best area on that breakout and then that reversal. Because you can see, this is what I was just talking about before. Someone was asking me about the breakout, how to play the breakout, right? I think that was Saber. You can see what happened there. So you see the breakout, you see some increased volume on the breakout at the time, because again, we didn't have any of this to look at. So you see some increased volume, great. So you place your order right here at the breakout point, or right here at the breakout point, and you can see price action came back down and tested that same area. So your buy order would have filled instead of market buying, you know, up here somewhere. So that is, you know, that's a really good entry area. and then you could have sold even right here, and you're already in profit, or here, or you could still sell right now if you wanted, and you'd still be in profit. So that's just, from playing more conservative, you can see how that can work out short-term and long-term for you. All right. Well, I actually have to sign off. I got some other stuff I got to go do, but thank you for joining us for the first Wednesday stream here. I got to take a look at a lot of great stuff. And yeah, we'll be doing these, like I said, every Wednesday, and we'll be doing some random ones throughout the week whenever anybody wants to pop on, and there will be announcements when those are happening. We have a number of the people set up to start doing these, and eventually we'll do some group streams as well. So thank you so much for joining, and I'll see you guys later.